don't even like it, Then sometimes I rail against it, but I always go to her when I want help, but when I want assistance, because I know that she's not afraid to tell me the truth. So people respect strength. People don't respect weakness. And that's something that you have to learn if you're going to be pulling your own strings in your own life. And that's operating from strength really means operating from effectiveness in your life. It's almost like you have to develop a code of non-victim ethics for yourself that says, I am a valuable, important, significant divine creation. I am here for a very short time. While I'm here in form in the physical body that I'm in, I am entitled to fulfill the purpose or the destiny that I have been assigned while I'm here. I believe in that, and I'm here for a purpose, and I'm going to get my life on that purpose. And anyone or anything that gets in the way of that, as long as I can behave towards them in a moral and just an honest way, I can say to myself in my moral code of ethics, you do not have a right to interfere. No one has a right to interfere with anyone else's right to live their life the way they want to. No one. My right to swing my fist and flail my arms about stops with your right to not have your nose be punched. When you establish strong boundaries with others, you assert your needs and desires in a firm yet respectful manner. It's important to communicate what doesn't sit well with you or makes you uncomfortable. Effective boundaries require assertiveness. If you struggle to voice your needs, you might find yourself in situations that don't serve you well. Asserting yourself means taking care of your own needs without dismissing others. It doesn't mean refusing compromise altogether, but compromising to the extent that you're no longer enjoying life calls for boundary reinforcement. Before setting boundaries, it's crucial to recognize how situations affect you and understand your own tendency. For instance, if your boss calls you after work hours, disrupting your rest or study time, setting a boundary could involve explaining that you're offline during those hours for personal reasons. Reflection and self-awareness pave the way for clear boundary setting. Once you've gained clarity, the next step is to communicate your boundaries effectively. Kind and assertive communication is key. Express your feelings and needs respectfully, steering away from anger or spite, as these emotions, though valid, may not facilitate constructive boundary setting. After communicating your boundaries, regularly assess if they're serving you well. If they're crossed, it may be necessary to address the issue again. For example, if your boss continues to call after hours despite your boundary, consider turning off your phone and initiating a follow-up conversation. This step can be challenging, but is essential for safeguarding your mental health and overall well-being. All right, so as long as you're not hurting anybody else in the process of operating from strength, as long as you're not interfering with somebody else's right to do the same, then whatever it is that you're doing is perfectly all right. Now, there are going to be a lot of people who aren't going to like that, and I've outlined a few of those people already. The family particularly are going to be a lot of people in there who are going to tell you that you shouldn't do it this way because it's inconvenient for them, or that isn't going to get them to, they're not going to have anybody to manipulate and control. And if you go off and just do whatever it is you want to, they might have to do a lot more than they've been used to doing. Then they might have to clean up after themselves. They might have to make some reason to take responsibility for their own life, and you've been doing that all along. So they will be spending a lot of energy in attempting to keep you from really asserting yourself and going on and doing what is significant and important for you in your own mind. But you have to be effective. You have to be what I think of as quietly effective. And the way that you are quietly effective is you do not teach people not to victimize you with words. Let me emphasize that. Words are not the tools of the quietly effective person operating from strength. It is behavior that counts. You teach people with your behavior how you want to be treated. And here we are trying to pull our own strings and be our own person and talking endlessly and ceaselessly and having these arguments and discussions, and it still goes on and it still goes on. And you still find yourself the victim, and you still find yourself picking up after others or not being respected or whatever it may be. There's an old saying, it's one of the secrets of the universe. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. And not one moment before doing is what teaches people how to understand you. So it is in the act of doing When someone behaves towards you in a way that is to victimize you, like your children, for example, leaving their clothes around, and you endlessly talk to them about not doing this any longer, and you don't want them to leave your clothes on, and don't you understand that I have to pick up your clothes and my clothes, and that's not fair, and you go through this tirade day in and day out, and it still continues. But when you take those clothes and put them in the trash, or when you leave those clothes sit there and don't wash them for them, so that the only clothes that get washed are those that are in the appropriate place. Or when you teach them with whatever it is that is effective, quietly effective behavior with no words, you let them know specifically, I am not going to be your victim. And this is true of virtually everything. Somebody who is yelling and screaming at you, and whether it's your husband or your wife or one of your children or a clerk or whatever, and if you stand there and scream back, it's just words against words and it doesn't mean anything. But if you leave quietly, leave the room and go into another room, you're sending a signal. I am too dignified and too valuable and too important a person. I think too much of myself to stand here or sit here and take that kind of abuse. So I will be leaving. And you don't have to say those words. You just do it. And in every single expression where you are victimized through conversation or through words, there is a way to teach people with your behavior that you are a person who operates from strength rather than weakness. You must learn to never place anyone in your life above yourself. No one